Let's make some caramel covered cream puffs. We'll start with the filling as it needs some time to cool. In a pot over medium-high heat, I add 750 milliliters of milk and a tablespoon of vanilla paste. Vanilla paste is what I had. You can use vanilla extract or best case a vanilla bean. I wait for it to almost boil and take it off the heat. Leave it aside for 15 minutes so the vanilla can really infuse the milk. In the bowl of a stand mixer, I add 6 egg yolks and 225 grams of sugar. I only had light brown sugar, so that's what I used. If you don't have a stand mixer, a hand mixer will work just fine. Once the mixture gets paler and the sugar is completely dissolved, I add 50 grams of cornstarch. Mix it just so long the cornstarch is incorporated, and then slowly, very slowly start adding the milk. Don't forget to turn the spoon down when it starts getting liquidy and add the remainder of the milk. Return the pot on the stove at medium-high heat and pour the mixture back in. You really gotta whisk now. It's important so you don't get lumps. We want a nice, smooth, creamy filling in the end. At some point, when you're about 4 or 5 minutes in, you'll start feeling some resistance. Things happen quickly after that, so be careful and don't stop whisking. When the mixture gets thick enough, take off the heat. At this point, I add 50 grams of butter and whisk until the butter is melted. Straining the filling is really optional, but it helps get rid of any lumps. Straining or not, transfer it to a bowl and cover with plastic wrap. You have to make sure the plastic touches the filling so it doesn't form a film on its surface when cooling. Put in the fridge for at least 2 hours. I usually make this a day ahead. Now let's get to our pastry dough. In a pot over high heat, I add 470 milliliters of water, 220 grams of butter, a teaspoon of salt and 3 tablespoons of sugar. Once it starts boiling, turn off the heat and immediately add 225 grams of flour. Stir in until all liquid is absorbed and the dough starts pulling away from the side of the pan. At this point, I would transfer it to a stand mixer equipped with a paddle attachment, but you can also do it by hand. If you go do it by hand, be prepared for a workout. While that's being mixed, I add 6 eggs one by one. Make sure each egg is fully incorporated before adding the next one. Once done, you should have a smooth and glossy dough. And now we're finally at the fun part, or at least fun for me. I get my piping bag ready with a round tip. Pour the dough in and press it down so it doesn't get any air bubbles. I take a baking sheet and line it with parchment paper. Then I start piping the dough into 2 cm circles, bringing it up into a point. Kind of like a certain emoji, I'm sure you know which one. Then I dip my finger in water and gently press on the chips to get the right shape. In the end, I brush them with some egg wash and get baking. You bake at 220 degrees Celsius for the first 15 minutes and then at 190 degrees for another 15 to 20 minutes. It's very important to not open the oven door while baking because otherwise they may not puff. Take them out on a wire rack and it's time for round 2. Piping, then water, then egg wash and bake again. Round 3 coming up. And while that's baking, let's do some cleanup. Batch 3 is finally ready. Wait for them to cool completely. Then take a wooden skewer and poke a little hole in the bottom of each one. This is where we would pipe in the filling in a little bit. When piping in the filling, use a small round tip. Make sure you're filling them all the way through, but don't overfill them as they will explode. We're finally at the last step, the caramel. 200 grams of brown sugar and 80 milliliters of water go into a casserole. Let the sugar dissolve without mixing it. Once it starts boiling, I insert a thermometer and wait for it to reach 150 degrees Celsius. Once we get to that temperature, I take it off the heat and add 80 milliliters of heavy cream. It will bubble, so be careful. I whisk until the cream is fully incorporated and transfer the caramel to a bowl. Here you can add some flaky sea salt if that's your thing. I dip the top of each cream puff in the caramel and put them on a plate. Start working in circles and your way up. to make a little pile. Then take a fork and drizzle some caramel on top. Honestly, at first this recipe was really intimidating to me, but once you get the hang of it and break it down into steps, it's not at all bad and it's definitely worth it. Enjoy!